Good morning. My name is Maren Forney. I'm excited to share with you guys today about my story and what God has done. I'll show you a little photo. There's my family. My husband's name is Nate. We've been married almost 17 years, and my children are, well, now I have a teenager. She turned 13 2 days ago. Which feels wild. And then we have a 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. Oh my God, it's like, can't even keep track. As it was shared, we moved here in 2012 and kind of started coming to Hershey since then. I spend my days homeschooling. I've been doing that for almost 10 years now, which is also wild. Nate works for Hershey Food, and that's kind of my background. I want to open up by sharing with you a little bit about how I came to know Jesus, and then we'll get into things. I feel nervous. My family, my dad was raised as a Lutheran in a Lutheran home. My mom was raised Catholic, and so when they started having kids, they decided to pick one. So they picked Lutheranism. So I was raised in the Lutheran church in Texas until I was 9. And then we moved to Colorado Springs. That's where I spent most of my life until my early 20s. And we went to a non-denominational church at that time. So I kind of grew up in like youth group, and by the time I was, is it getting louder? No, okay. I just was like, oh my God. Let me know if it gets crazy. Got this. Where was I? All I have written down right here is Jesus' testimony. So I was like, you know this, it's your story. Let's see, where was I? Where was I? I was in youth group. That's right, I was in youth group. So at this time, I definitely would have said I was a Christian. I had already been baptized at that point twice, once as a Lutheran, as a baby, and then once again when my family transitioned to this non-denominational church, and they were like, baby infant baptism, we do believer baptism, so then my whole family got baptized at that time. And then I entered into high school. I did like a winter retreat. I, on occasion, would like read my Bible because that's like what Christians did. And there was this one winter retreat that I had gone to, and I was 17 at this point. I was a junior. And I remember sitting in the talk, and the speaker was saying things, even like 2 hours after the talk, I couldn't remember what he had said. This was like the most bizarre experience for me, but I remember sitting there, and all of a sudden it was almost like everything like zoned out, and I sensed God speaking to me, like it impressed on my heart, and it was like probably the first time I ever felt that. And I distinctly remember hearing, hi Ashley. I distinctly remember, where am I? Talk. I was at the talk. Yes, I remember hearing or sensing God say, like, you think that you know me, but do you really want to know me? And I remember being like, I thought I did. Like, isn't that what I've been, like, haven't I been a Christian my whole life? You know, like I thought I did. And I was like, well, yeah, I would like to know you. If I don't, then I would like to. And all I remember is after this little convo, I was like physically shaking, which was wild. I just remember, and I'm like 17 and I'm like, what's happening? That was bizarre, still to this day feels bizarre. But since then, it was like I started really hungering for God. Like when I would read the Bible, it was like I was reading it for the first time. I even had taken like church notes because that's what like Christians did. And I would look back at my notes and I recognized my handwriting, but I had no idea what I wrote. And I was reading it for the first time. And I was like, this stuff is amazing. Like he actually did this. Like I don't know. It was just like crazy. Then entering into college, God provided a lot of women. I was involved in Crew, Campus Crusade for Christ, and I had some women who were further ahead in their spiritual walks that would meet with me, and they would show me how to read the Bible and what prayer was, and all these things that I grew up quote knowing, but it was I was literally, it was the scales fell off my eyes, and I was just this is wild. So I even remember being I'd come to this one girl and I'd be so I was reading the Bible and it says saints, and I'm who is that? What is a saint? And then she's oh, it's another word for Christian. And I'm oh, it was so entry level. Got baptized for the third time in the ocean in Florida. I worked at a church over the summer and they were doing baptisms, and I'm hey, this is I actually know what this is now. And so I got my third baptism, so that's exciting. I know that the last meeting you guys discussed John 15, so I am going to read this passage again. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. That's John 15, 1-5. Now, this story is not going to get into the nitty-gritty of this passage, but I will, side note, say I got into plants a couple years ago. Tiff's laughing because she knows that's an understatement. I got one plant and I kept it alive, and I was this is the best. And then I started calling it my baby, and then it was one plant led to another. I think I have 50. I'm not kidding. I sold some plants at this craft fair last year. I'm propagating more. I literally have a cart in my house that's ready and waiting with tons. So we're gonna be up probably 100 in a couple months in the home that I'm just caring for. And they go through a cycle, they kind of start to die, and then I'm oh no. And then I do a mass watering, and I'm okay. And it's this cycle of are they gonna live? We don't know. Anyway, so this verse I really I see this daily where I'm the branches get everything from the vine. And they do nothing. They just sit there and receive what the vine gives. And that's kind of how my story goes a little bit. As I was praying for what I wanted to share, I'm just going to go back to that. So I've known about this talk for probably 7 months, and I have gone round and round in my head on what part of my story do I feel God is wanting to share? Because there are lots of pieces, as you all have in your own stories, that if you were to pick this part of your life, it's well, what would you choose? So I really felt God was leading me to share this morning about my mental health journey, specifically the last 4 years. So I'm going to get into that. But I feel it represents well how God met me exactly where I was at and led me even where I didn't know where I was going or didn't even know I needed to go somewhere, and then nourished me and provided for me. And I think very much the vine with the branches. You get that little tie in there of that passage. So before we get started, let me just pray for our time. Lord, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for all of the women in this room. I pray that you would quiet our minds and our hearts. I know that as moms, there are 8 billion details that we all come into this room thinking about. And I pray that you would just quiet that for the next few moments and help us to hear and think about and know you more. And that you would allow us to take from this time together what you have for us and let what isn't for us fall away. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. So when I had my first baby, which was 13 years ago, as of 2 days ago, I well, I'm not going to get into how that was like a train wreck experience. You labor for 40 hours, you're not sleeping for 3 days. I was like, you're welcome to momhood. I was not, I don't handle not sleeping well. It was just like a whole thing. But once I kind of like got in the swing of motherhood, I had like so much joy. I loved that little baby. And I would like go in and she'd be waiting for me at the crib and just like smiling, and it'd just be like her and me all day. And it was just like, and she'd nap and I'd nap. It was just like so much fun, I was like, let's have another. So like 18 months later, we had our son. And that was like, oh, this is very different. Like being pregnant the second time, I'm not just kicking up my feet, relaxing when I'm tired. It's like, no, you're hauling around the toddler. And then you add a third in, and now I'm just like, whoa, I was so tired, which I'm sure you all, I just like, sometimes I look out right now and I'm just having like trauma of like, I'm like, oh, the babies. We all love our kids. Yes, we do. We really do. And yes, we're tired, right? We're so exhausted. I was just like really tired, like just all the time. And as you know, there's always like, it's motherhood and you're in the trenches and like, we're like warriors, and we are. But I was also like really easy to anger and frustration. I had a lot of that growing up, just like anger. And so managing that was really tricky when you're exhausted. So I could tell like I just would be irritable. Everything in life at that point was a to-do list. I not only did I keep a lot of lists, because when you've got 3 kids and you've got like all these things, you're just like lists everywhere, but everything felt like a to-do. Like, oh, we're going on a trip. And I'd be like, oh my God. Like, it's like you want to be excited, but I'm like, well, that means packing and da-da-da, and then messing up the sleep schedule. And then we come back and you have the hangover and it's just like, wah, and you're just like, why do we do this? Why do we? And it's like, for the memories. And you're just like, oh my gosh. So there's like that, right? And then it's like even hanging out with friends. It's like I'd have to remind myself, like, you like people. You like going out and getting dressed. And I'm like, no, I got put together for you. But if I wasn't here, I would be wearing my athletic wear and like I call it my uniform. It's like all the time, it's like either leggings in the winter or like athletic shorts in the summer. And that's just like, that's it, unless I'm here. And then I'm like, let's look like you don't do that all the time. But yeah, so I think like friends, all these things that I used to love just became like another thing. Like, we're going to get through this and we're going to get through that. And then you've got this and then you've got that doctor's appointment. And I think like I had kind of a lack of joy in most activities, but I just felt like, well, this is normal. Every mom is exhausted and tired. And I used to get like lots of ideas and lots of creativity. And at this stage of my life, I was so tired that like by the time the evening rolled, it's just like, my gosh, you like close the door and you're like, please just don't come back out. Like, please just don't come back out. And then it's like, I'm either wanting to go to sleep or I'm wanting to watch a show. But it was never like, let's do something. Like, because I was just like, no. Like, no. Like, I don't even want that. Or so I thought. I thought I didn't want that. I think I actually did want that. But given the scenario, just when you're so tired, you just don't. And I would lay down in bed. And I remember for a good I don't know how many years this was, I would lay down and when my head would hit the pillow, I would go, oh, my favorite part of the day. And then like I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be like, oh, here we go. And I'd be like basically saying to my bed, I'll see you later. Like I just was like, I love sleeping. Like I was just like, I just want to be alone. Around this time, a friend had posted on Facebook. She's a Christian, she's like a speaker, author, like posted something about her depression, which I was kind of like, oh, I would have never thought that was going on. We weren't close, but I just remember reading it. And she had listed her depression symptoms. And as I read it, I was like, my gosh, it was like basically the list I just shared with you. And I was like, I didn't think that's what depression was. I very much stereotypically thought that it was like, you're in a dark room for weeks. Like, you don't shower, you don't eat, you have zero emotion. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought. And I'm like, well, I'm not there. And then when I read this, I was like, wait, what? Like, every mom feels that way, right? Like everyone feels that way, which, to be clear, I do think there is an element where we all do, and there is seasons. Okay, so don't mishear me here. But I think I remember I went to Nate, my husband, and off and on throughout our life, I'd be like, do you think I'm depressed? Because I would feel very up and down. And he could quickly be like, no. This time I was like, I just read this girl's post and like, I'm like thinking about it. And I'm like, do you think I'm depressed? Hoping he'd be like, no. And he's like, no. I'm like, and he was like, well, I don't know. He's like, you are really overwhelmed a lot. I'm like, well, yeah, I got 3 kids, you know. I'm like, but yeah, so anyway, it kind of like struck me because I was like, well, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go. And so then I like sat with it and I was like, well, yeah, I have felt overwhelmed. And then I started questioning, well, when did I start feeling overwhelmed? I'm like, well, kids, obviously. And then I kept thinking and I was like, was it when we got married? Because I was like, I'm like extreme introvert and I'm like, now I'm with a human 24/7. So I do think I got overwhelmed around that time. And then I'm thinking back and I'm like, well, I do know in my 20s, even when I like didn't have anything really to do besides like a part-time job or whatever it was, that you're like, I'm so busy. And you're like, you don't even know what busy is. I felt busy then. And then I'm like in high school, I remember feeling overwhelmed about like studies and da-da-da. So anyway, I was like, am I just an overwhelmed person? I was like, wow, okay, whatever. So I decided to actually go to a natural DO doctor. And I was like, well, let's like look into some things because I thought at this point, my baby was now 5 and I had thought, okay, so we've done 7 years of like pregnant, nursing. And I was like, let's just let all the hormones balance out. Well, I was now, 3.5 years past, almost 4 years past weaning. And I was like, things don't feel any different. Like it just still feels like, ugh. Like I just don't know what happened to the old me. Do you know what I mean? The pre-kid me. So I go to this doctor and they run all sorts of tests. Like my estrogen was high throughout the month. The only time it was level was the day I would ovulate, which is like, that's when you're supposed to have your peak of estrogen. So I don't understand how that works out where it's like super high all month and the time when it should be high, you're like, no, that's your one normal day of the month, but it's fine. And then I had like a deficiency in vitamin D. And then I'm like, find out that I'm like kind of mildly allergic to gluten and dairy and eggs. And so anyway, I leave there and I begin a 9-month journey of diligent sleep, diligent exercise, diligent diet changes, getting rid of gluten, dairy, and eggs. And I was rigid because I was like, we're gonna make this thing work, right? Like and they're telling me all this stuff will make me feel better. And I'm at a place of like, I'm tired of not feeling better. And then I took 11 supplements, which then I started being like, is this a cash cow business? Because I'm literally like buying so much, and that's another topic for another day. But so I do this. And I remember a friend asking me like, so how are you feeling? This is like 9 months in. And I'm like, honestly, my body feels like awesome. Because like, you know, if I did have all those allergies or whatever, it's like my GI tract was like, we were like loving life. But I was like, my mind, I'm like, I still feel like maybe a notch better, you know, because I'm sleeping. But it felt like I was doing so much and just barely, I'm like, maybe this is just life. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe this is just motherhood. Also, around the same time, 2 people close to me had been diagnosed with OCD. I didn't really know what that was, so I began looking into it because I wanted to identify with them and understand their journey. And as I was like looking into it, I was like, so OCD is it's an anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I thought, again, stereotypically, there's so many stereotypes around mental health. I was like, that's like, you're super clean, you're really organized. I've even said things like, I'm so OCD about X, Y, and Z. But I was like, as I was reading into it, I'm like, oh wait, it's not just about like being clean or being worried about germs or being organized. There's actually many different facets to that disorder. And I happen to resonate with nearly almost every single one of those things, to where I was like, what? Like when you like read something and you're like, it's like they know me. Like they like literally know me is how I felt. So I'm like sitting on the couch, decide to take an online test, which has anyone ever taken, I mean, you've taken online tests, right? Have you guys scored like an 18 out of 20? I was like, oh, yeah, of course. But I'm thinking as I read the questions, I'm like, everyone feels this way. So then I'm like, hey, Nate, we're sitting on the couch. I'm like, can you just like take this test quick? So I like pass him the laptop. So he takes it, passes it back. It's like 0 out of 20. And I was like, literally, I'm serious. Can you just take the test? And he was like, I did take the test. And I'm like, no, I mean like, actually like, just answer it how you would normally feel. Like, on average, you feel da-da-da. And he's like, I did. I don't feel any of these things. I'm like, what? Like, and then I'm like, it must be a male-female difference, you know? Like, I was like beside myself. Like, how do you not? This test was just human experience. Humans feel all of these things, right? Like, and I'm like, how do you get a 0? Like, are you dead inside? Just like, you don't, anyway. So this really got me like, whoa. And in particular, there's a piece about OCD that was really interesting. It's called relationship OCD, where you can kind of, you can circle on over-analyzing your relationships, what they said, what they meant. Did I write the right thing? Did they say the right thing? You can be socially anxious. You can have, and it's just like all the stuff. Well, when we read about that piece in our marriage, that was like life-changing, because there were certain topics that we would circle again and again and again and didn't seem to make movement in, and typically revolved around me being upset with him about X, Y, or Z. And I'm reading about this, and I think we both were like, what? And I was like, do you think some of our issues would be this? And I mean, it was like liberating in our marriage, because when we did find out, yes, that was this, we began treating it completely differently. And that's a whole other also topic for another day. But all of this to say, I started realizing, wow, I think this whole thing is very much more complicated than I realized. I had done probably 10 years off and on of counseling, just because I felt like, oh, there's like so much anger in my heart. Like, how do I confess this, repent of it? Like, why am I so angry? You know what I mean? Lack of joy, I thought, was like not accepting what God had been doing in my life. Like, I addressed things spiritually, and this was starting to make me think, wait a minute, is there more to this than what I had thought? So I decided, you know, after trying counseling and diet and hormone balancing, to see a psychologist. And let me tell you, making that phone call was like, who am I? There's absolutely nothing wrong with psychologists, but my stigmas was like, what? So I get an appointment. Oh boy, you guys. So I spent, maybe it was 2.5, 3 hours, loved the psychologist that I met with, amazing woman, did several tests. She talked with me about my life, different stories of upbringing. I left with not 1, not 2, but 3 diagnoses, and had no idea for my prior nearly 40 years that I had 3 mental health diagnoses. I had OCD, which I was like, okay, ADHD, which I kind of feel like that one's like, I don't want to say there's a popular mental health disorder, but I feel like that one's like more easily accepted. I don't know. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I could see that. And then cyclothymia, which I hadn't even heard that word. So I'm going to give you a brief summary just very quickly about these. So we already talked about obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. It's an anxiety disorder. Sometimes it's considered or called the doubting disease, because you doubt a lot of things. Did I make the right choice? Did I say the right thing? Do I actually have faith in God? Does my husband actually love me? Is there something there? Like, did I do this? Did I check that? Did I unplug the hair thing? Did I like, so that's that. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, oftentimes not seen in women because you can have like the inattentive type. So I've always thought, oh, it's just like super high energy, like boys, you know? And I'm like, clearly I was not high energy. I was like wanting to be in bed all the time. So that was like, what? But anyway, again, won't go into that. But I think for a majority, it's kind of like, oh, you're not able to pay attention. But I think primarily the issue is you pay attention to everything all at the same time. So it's like I might be having a conversation with you in a restaurant, but I'm also hearing their conversation, and I hear the busboy who just opened the door behind me, and I hear like the buzzing that's happening from that, and the lights are a little bright over there, and all of it comes in at the exact same volume. So I'm just like, okay, so like I'll sit in certain spots in a restaurant to make sure I can like focus better, or I carry earplugs around with me. This was before I ever knew I had issues. I don't have issues. Is that God? I'm made wonderfully, right? Okay. Before I realized something was going on more, but it was like things could just be really overstimulating, and it was loud and it would hurt my head. So I would wear earplugs, especially around my kids as they're like screaming. I couldn't like engage, and the volume of the home was just like, rah. So, okay, I'm getting distracted. Cyclothymia, that one is a mood disorder. This is like you feel highs and you feel lows, and there is absolutely no reason why. I thought this was my hormones. I had been tracking my hormone cycle, probably my cycle since early 20s, because I was just like, I feel like I'm having estrogen, like I'm feeling up and I'm feeling down. And over time, when I really started looking into it, I was like, those ups and downs didn't quite match perfectly, but they definitely seemed to be happening based on hormones, but it wasn't always. Cyclothymia is in the bipolar family. You have bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and then there's cyclothymia. I'd never heard of that version because people are oftentimes never diagnosed with it, especially women, because we think it's our hormones. But you can have ups and downs, they're just not as extreme. So it very much can feel like a wave of estrogen or whatever. Okay, so needless to say, that led to maybe 2 days of crying in bed because I was like, what? Like, who walks away with 3 diagnoses? It was like I was shocked. Nate was like, okay, like, I don't know. He's probably like, yeah, no, I think he was surprised as well. I think we were both like, okay. And I would say that it was bittersweet. And I know that sometimes it's discussed like people don't like labels. I loved it because I finally felt seen. I was, for myself even, where I was like, oh my gosh, it was like all these dots connected. And bittersweet. It was bitter because it was like, oh gosh. And I think there was this feeling of like, so this isn't health related. Like this isn't like I could sleep a lot and get rid of this, or I could take the right supplement and these things would go away. It's like, this makes sense. I mean, it's been a lifelong thing. But knowing what was going on, and it like unlocked all of this tool set that had never been touched. And when I think about, like when I was thinking about God as the vine, I just was like, the way that met me and what doors that opened for me was wild. And I had not been, like, in a way I was asking for that and pursuing that, but never in my wildest dreams thought I would uncover what had just happened. So through that, I then began like targeted therapy instead of doing talk therapy and counseling, which for someone with OCD just makes you go round and round and round and round on the same topics. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. If you have anxiety, it's much better to treat it a very specific way. And so I started having like so much improvement just in that. And then like reading books about these things, reading techniques, listening to podcasts. It just opened up this whole realm of things I had never explored or thought was going on. And it was like literally life-changing. In our marriage, it was life-changing. The friction that we had, which was OCD related and not spiritual, was like almost overnight. I just can't explain to you. I'm just really grateful. And then even just like medicine, which was something I was very like taboo, especially I feel like in the Christian culture I was raised in, it was very much like you don't do that. And having that, I cannot tell you how crazy different my head feels in the best ways. So we're gonna pause right there and we are gonna discuss a question and then I'm gonna come back and finish. But what is a way that God has kept you sustained during a hard time in your motherhood journey? So kind of specific, if you think about your motherhood journey, what is something that was really difficult, but that you noticed or felt God was sustaining you in it? Part of me was debating if we should just do like one-to-one so that it doesn't take a long time. How would you feel about that? Buddy up, maybe 2 or 3 people? Okay. I think we've got like 5 minutes. I'm not sure. My clock, I have no idea how much time we have, so we'll come back. All right. We're going to have some more questions at the end, too. So I'm going to bring us back. So, at this point in my story, I am receiving help for things that I never knew were even possible in my life, which was incredible. This verse, Psalm 56, 3-4, especially in regards to anxiety, had been something that, and still is, a passage that I absolutely adore. David says, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me?" And this passage really struck me because, and I don't want to like down talk Christian culture because I love the church, love like Jesus followers. But I do think sometimes in the church, there is an idea that for those who have anxiety, that like the opposite of that is having faith. And that having faith pushes out that anxiety. And I loved that David, it struck me, this man after God's own heart, he says, when I am afraid. He's not saying if, or like he seems very acquainted with that feeling, when I am afraid. But he does do something with it. He puts his trust in God. Now, over the years, I can share that I've come to the conclusion that like I will probably sit side by side with anxiety till I am fully redeemed. And I do not believe anxiety drives my faith one way or the other. If anything, I think it's only deepened it. I think I remember seeing something where someone had said like, what was it? Worship over fear. It was like, if we have a heart of worship, we will not be in fear. And I think those messages are so crushing and so shaming to those of us who do have, and we all do, right? Even if you don't have a diagnosis, like we do. It's like a human emotion. And so what does it look like to be afraid? And when you are afraid or you are feeling physical side effects of anxiety or whatever it is that you're dealing with, what does it look like in those moments to have faith that like it is okay that you are there? Like that doesn't change his standing with you. That doesn't change his love for you. That doesn't change anything. None of that fluctuates with your physical body or your mind. Like you can have a rock solid faith and be having a panic attack at the same time. So I am getting on a sidetrack here. Okay, so I began to feel a lot better in regards to my anxiety, in regards to my ADHD. But I started noticing as those things kind of got better, I really began to notice the mood piece. Because the noise of those things started to calm. And then I was just like, I still would wake up sometimes and just be like, man, I'm just bumming. Like nothing in my circumstances changed. And I'm just sad. And I'd just be sad for about 4 days. And then that might lift. And then I might have 4 days of like, the world is awesome. Like a kind of a hypomania, like everything is amazing for about 2 days. And then it elevates to like rage cleaning. Like the house, I'm like, light it on fire. Like, I'm just like, get rid of everything. And Nate and I joke, like now that we know what's going on, sometimes he's like, let her do her thing. And it's like, boom, that house is clean. And like, but then the next week it's like, oh no, I'm like down and the house is bombed again. And we, as a family unit, we do ride a bit of a wave. But this particular Sunday morning, I was just really sad about this because I think there was this feeling of like, back before I knew about all these things, I thought I still had hope they would be fixed with diet and all these things. It was circumstantial, it was motherhood, it was the ages of my kids. I think realizing this is like a lifelong thing that I will be dealing with started to feel very discouraging of like, I really am tired of riding the wave of ups and downs and feeling out of control of that. And so I just was downhearted, and I remember sitting in church just like sad, just like I now know what this is and I know that I'll just be having it, like this is just my lot kind of feeling. And I really felt like God impressing on my heart, go down front and ask for prayer at the end of the service. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Which is terrible. It's terrible to say that. Please, people, go get prayer, okay? Go get prayer. I just have a lot of stigmas and at the time, my husband was a chair on the elder board at church. And I was like, if I walk down front, they're going to be like, what's wrong with their marriage? And I'm like, are they having problems? Side note, we always do. Like, we're humans. We do have problems in our marriage, right? That should be fine. You should feel fine to go ask for prayer for these things. But I'm in my head, right? I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, was that God? Was that just me? Oh my God, I don't know. Maybe I don't need to go down. And I was like, just go. And I'm like, all right, Lord, this is all in my hand. I'm sure someone's talking, maybe George, I don't know. And I'm like, I'll just go down by faith. Like, I'm probably gonna go down. They're probably gonna pray, maybe offer a quick spiritual Band-Aid of like, we'll pray that this gets better. And I'm gonna be like, listen, I've spent like years trying to just accept and own what's happening and walk in it. Do you know what I mean? So I was nervous that I might feel more shame, or I might feel like it's like, have faith, or any of these stigmas that I grew up feeling. But I'm like, Lord, if that's what you want, let's do this. So it's like after the service, I walk down. And then I sit in the bench because I was like, I'm not doing this standing. So I had the person came and sat with me. I was like, I'm not going to be on display. Okay, we're going to do this sitting. And also I'm like, how am I going to get into this with this person, right? Okay, so there's actually 3 diagnoses. And the one I'm specifically praying about is cyclothymia. I didn't know the word either. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh. And she's like, I don't know how old, maybe 70. So I'm just like, mental health, I feel like, is becoming more open in generations. So I'm just like, here we go. So I'm like trying to sum up. Okay, so here's just briefly, this is kind of my like last couple years. I get to cyclothymia. I'm like, I'm guessing you probably don't know what this means, but she stops me. Oh, honey, I know exactly what you mean. I'm a psychotherapist. I've done this work for 40 years, like my entire career. I know exactly what cyclothymia is. And I'm like, even today, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are the odds? I even said that to her, what are the odds? She's like, very slim, okay? I'm like, oh. What was amazing in that moment, I was just like, all right, here we go. Like, let's just talk now that we're past all that. I'm like, it's like this and it's like that. And then I'm over here. She's like, I get it. I could not have asked for a better experience. Anyway, so through that, she was tracking. Like, we're now, I just had to say the words. And she's like, this has probably been really hard for you, hasn't it? And I'm like, yeah, like life has been really hard. And she's like, look at, like, you've made it to your 40s and like had no help, which like I did. And God did sustain me. But, so anyway, she's like, I really think you should consider a mood stabilizer. And I'm literally like, you don't know what it took to get me on the medicines I'm on now. My stigmas are like so high. I'm a freaking pharmacy is how I felt. We're adding another one in? Okay, great. Who am I now? I don't even know. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, all along, I was telling my husband, like, hey, if you notice anything about me, like, that makes me seem not right. Like, tell me. Like, because I feel like I was nervous I'd lose myself. Side note, I feel like I've only gained myself back through this process. Again, another topic. But, so anyway, she's like, I know that this can be life-changing for some people. And so I left church being like, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that experience would have just taken place. And I felt like the hand of God was like, try this thing. So I call my psychiatrist. I moved from a psychologist to a psychiatrist. Again, words that I'm like, what? And I'm like, listen, I think, what if we tried this? What are your thoughts? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, reiterated, sometimes people's lives have been just like awesome from this. And I'm like, okay, thinking I've never in my life thought this is where I'd be. So anyway, we start that. And I cannot tell you, like, I basically know who I'm going to get when I wake up now. Like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I am off a roller coaster that, like, I had no control of. And yes, we still have lots and lots of things going on all the time, but it's just like the volume's been turned down on so much. Where now it feels just like, and I'm just like so grateful to God. It makes me think of this passage in Isaiah, he will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those that are with young. And I have this image of Jesus as the shepherd, just like the crowd is coming. And some of them he's holding, the ones that have broken legs or whatever. And then some of them have like young. And he is gentle with the ones that have young, because some of the lambs don't have children. And so they're like, wee. And then some of the lambs have children and they're like, let's go. And I view like, are things coming undone here? I kind of view whatever struggle you have going on in your life. In mine at this season, it was mental health, but you probably have your own struggles, and these are our young that we are bringing along with us, and he's gentle with us with what you are carrying. Like, you have your own things that you are walking through the flock with, doing this, whether it's our literal children, or whatever other things. Like, he's gentle with us. And I saw that through this process. I still feel that way through this process. And sometimes I question, like, why now in my 40s? Why not when I was young? And I don't know that. But in some ways, it's like it made this so much sweeter too. Like, to just be like, whoa, like an answer to decades of prayers. And then also thinking how I can help the next generation potentially have more insight, less stigma, and just compassion for this intersection of mental health and faith. Also, I think in the last 2 years, the last place that there's like 1,000 places I've seen God in this, but another place where I saw him being the vine and really sustaining me, in the last 2 years, over like an 18-month window, I lost my Jodic, which is my grandpa. And then 8 months later, I lost my mom. And then 9 months later, I lost my father-in-law. And then my uncle. And then one of my best friend's husbands passed, leaving 3 kids, my kids' ages. My husband's job transitioned. And then I've had a back injury for 6 months and finishing up PT. It has been wild, to say the least. The 2 years prior to that was this story that I was sharing with you of God providing for me. And I can only, I can't imagine what the last 2 years would have been like without that form of stability. And just think, like, I didn't know any of these things would be unfolding, you know what I mean? So he's just so kind, and I'm just so thankful. So I would want you to take away from this time that if you struggle with mental health, you are not alone, and that Jesus cares so intimately about that process. Even if you don't struggle with mental health, we all resonate with those feelings, you know what I mean? And also, you also have your own story and struggles. And I think just knowing Jesus really cares about the intimate details, and even in the windows where you may not see or sense or feel that nourishment, it's happening. Like you are attached to the vine. Whether you want to be or not, you're there, okay? Well, we want to be, okay? But John 16:33 says, in this world you will have trouble. Take heart, for I have overcome the world. I think just realizing like we're gonna all face our things. That's just the world we live in. But know that like he's overcome it. And there will be a day where our minds and our bodies and our hearts are one. Like everything is healed. And I can't wait for that. I think that'll be pretty awesome. So that is my story. If you'd like to reach out later, here's my info. Feel free to get in touch with me. And then I've got 3 questions for us to discuss. What is a recent way you felt nourished or cared for by God? Now, how this is different than that first question we discussed, I wanted it more recent. Let's talk like the last year. What's something that you feel like God has really nourished and cared for you in? What has your mental health journey looked like since becoming a mother? And if you had to choose a word to describe how you're actually doing in life right now, what word would you choose and why? So let's chat.